There's a menu. You didn't see it. Your immersion is not broken and nothing happened. Hello. Hello, everybody. How are you all doing? Hello, hello. Hello, Jay Hanlon. Hello, Miguel. Hi, Matt. Hi, I'm Zero. Welcome in. Hi, Eric. Welcome in. The saucy backpack has already been discovered. Incredible. You lot are on the ball. How am I meant to keep up with this? You're all too good. What the hell? Let me just scoot to the side slightly. There we go. That's better, isn't it? Hello, how are we all doing today? Oh, the music is way too loud, isn't it? Let's turn that down. Too much sick beats in this house. There we go. That's more like it. What is the sussy backpack? Don't you like it? I think the sussy backpack's brilliant. It's on your radar emote. Because you're going on a school trip, right? So you want to take a backpack. It's a backpack. I feel like that's very obvious. I worked very hard on that, I'll have you know. Thank you, thank you. Okay, right, so full disclosure, I'm getting like loads of warnings on my end saying that my stream is unstable. So if there's any issues, please like just tell me. Just like instantly tell me in the chat if the stream is going down or if something weird is happening, and I will do my best to fix it. But I can already foresee this being the technical difficulty, aside from the menu, which you definitely did not see. Sussy backer needs a sussy backpack. So true. So true. That is exactly why I have it. The stream's looking good. Good stuff. Good stuff. Hi, Tayu. Tayu! Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. What you like, honestly. Thank you. Oh, that's so kind of you. Yeah. So, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing, and I did not deserve the sub, but thank you. Hype, 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 hype. That yeah, that hi. That was certainly an entrance. That was certainly an entrance. Okay. So, what are we doing today? What are we doing today? The plan is. How many of you missed the beginning of the last journal club, where we were talking about Fearing the Trojan Horse by Zagefka and colleagues? This was a paper that was chosen by chat. I had no say in it. You missed it? Okay, we've got one missed it, definitely. And I think Tayu also missed it. That is fine. I will give a very, very brief recap of the paper. Thankfully, there's an abstract on it, and I can just refer to that. I definitely have not forgotten what this paper is about. I definitely do not have that bad of a memory. That would be ridiculous. But yeah, today we're going to be going through a paper. Very cool, very exciting. It's actually a paper in an area that I know a little bit about, so that's nice. The first paper that we did was like all about how people actually conduct science, which was very good. It was also in my area, but I think I might have not done such a good job of relaying it because it was methodological, and I looked back on it and I was like, why did I choose that? That's such a strange paper as a first choice, but hey ho, you know, it is what it is. I'm just very excited about people doing science very badly, and I want to talk about it and think about ways to do it better. But you know, sometimes it's hard to get that across if you don't have experience of doing it. You know, but yeah. So the paper. Actually, let me just bring it up. Let me just bring it up. Where is it? Here it is. That was a very dramatic transition. Where's my nice fade transition gone? What's going on today? Honestly, honestly. So this was the paper. Fearing. Ooh, my stomach just rumbled. I apologize if you heard that. Hopefully you didn't. Every time I'm like, quick, okay, end of the working day, scarf down food. Like, I need to have snack before I stream, and then my stomach starts making strange digestion noises. I apologize in advance. I also literally just woke up from a nap like 15 minutes ago, I think. Because so my morning was actually quite productive. I was quite proud of it. I made some suggestions on a thing. um and it was a very good thing. It didn't really need that many suggestions, but I hope that I helped. And then my afternoon was just entirely spent like writing the introduction to one of my PhD chapters, and it literally like, you know, like when someone goes into a black hole and they just like become a string of atoms. I think that happened to my brain. Like the black hole that is science just completely spaghettified my brain, and it was no longer able to function, because it was just a string of atoms and it couldn't actually, you know, do the chemical processes anymore. But thankfully, I have managed to rearrange my brain. We have returned from beyond the event horizon, and I am hopefully going to be able to process what's going on in this paper. But I can't make any promises. This is probably going to be kind of scuffed. I also haven't, like, I was like, normally I would, if I have a nap, I would like offset it with caffeine, and I haven't even done that because I've already had way too much caffeine today. Like it's getting problematic. But yeah. Anyway, that's how I'm doing. How are you all doing? Me just completely rambling on. But I swear, like when you're writing a PhD thesis, like you just stop functioning. You stop functioning. I don't know how else to describe it. Like it's wild. Your brain just, I don't know. You're so hyper fixated on one specific thing that you forget about how to do anything else and how to function like an adult. But yeah. Yeah. So yeah, this paper. Fearing the Trojan horse. Motives attributed to the outgroup and rejection of the outgroup help. Let me take a minute to process what this even is again. Um, oh, you're doing good. I'm glad. I'm glad. Can't imagine what a PhD thesis entails. It's suffering. It's nothing but pure suffering. 0 out of 10. Do not recommend. If it's possible to go into negative, then that, you know, like negative 10 out of 10. No, it's all right. It's all right. It's just a lot of like self-directed work. You just have to kind of like plan out your time, but I'm not very good at doing that. So I get excited about things and then go off on a tangent, and then I don't do my actual work, and then, you know, next thing I know it's been a whole day and I've written about 200 words. And if I was sensible, you know, I would have done it as I went along. I would have written bits of my thesis as I was like doing the research. But no, I was not sensible. I was a very silly sausage, and I am paying the consequence of it now. I haven't even actually finished my research though. I've still got like two, like, because the way that psychology theses tend to work is that you'll do like a study, and then, well, you do a series of studies, and then you kind of squish them all together into a thesis, and then normally you'll have like one chapter per study. So for example, it will be like, so mine is like, my first two chapters are going to be one study, because there was enough information coming out of it that I could write two chapters from it. But then the others are all like one or two studies per chapter, because they kind of just like build upon each other in little ways. So I think the next one that I need to write is going to be two studies in one chapter, if I remember correctly. I probably don't. I've got to the point where I don't even remember my own thesis correctly. Like, you know, when you've been doing something for so long that you just can't process it anymore. That's where I am with it. Imagine doing self-directed work. Honestly, yeah. I do minimal self-directed work. I really, yeah. It's I do what is required to get people to not tell me off. And then otherwise, I just. Well, actually, I know. I guess I do a lot of self-directed work. It's just the wrong work. I do a lot of other stuff, uh, which is not my thesis. This is me having like live reflection of like, oh god, what am I doing with my life? Like live on stream. So that's good. That's good. I need to self-direct myself to get out of bed. That's a mood. That's honestly such a mood. I don't know if it's like because it's winter here, and I don't know if it's that, and like, you know, because it gets dark earlier. But like I just really struggle to like be awake in the mornings, especially when I wake up and it's still dark, and I'm like, I can't do this. But then I can't sleep super late because I'm meant to be like, you know, an adult. I'm meant to be like a functioning member of society. Wild. Uh, so I'm not really sure how I'm meant to be navigating the winter in general. Every year this happens, and then I'm always like, oh yeah, I'll just have a routine, and then I don't, which is pretty not good, not good, not good. Oh, I did the final thesis of my previous degree during COVID, and the only thing I concluded is that I don't want to do a PhD. Okay, that's the sensible thing. My master's, I did it when I was when it was the pandemic, and I to this day I don't know what I was thinking, because like my master's thesis was meant to be like an in-person lab experiment, that I was going to be doing in March 2020. For obvious reasons, that did not occur. It turns out if there's a pandemic, you can't bring people into the lab and do strange things to them. So I had to change everything to like online experiment. And I had no idea what I was doing. My advisor at the time was like dealing with loads of other stuff. Like, unfortunately, the pandemic meant that she became really, really busy. Um, and I just, yeah, it delayed and delayed and delayed, and it ended up that my master's thesis overlapped with starting my PhD, which was like the most, I don't know, that was like an experience, because I was starting my PhD and I hadn't even finished my master's, and I was like trying to write a thesis and like my introductory exams at the same time, and I was like, what is going on? Where am I? I just kind of, I've lost like an entire year and a half period because I still don't know what was happening. But yeah. Speaking of the pandemic, this paper is actually kind of related to the pandemic, right? So, did you like that transition? I was proud of that one. But yeah, the paper, it's looking at how different groups feel about vaccine donations. So, as a very brief summary, we only read the introduction last time, I think. And segue, yeah. um, so we only read the introduction last time, but in short, from what I remember anyway, so they did two parallel studies. They're both in countries that have intergroup relations with more financially powerful countries, as it were. And we're we're looking at how those relations between the countries affect whether or not, or rather how they feel about vaccine donations. So obviously there was this whole thing in the pandemic where countries were donating their own vaccine, and it kind of became like, how can I say this politely? Not like, it kind of became a political statement, right? Where they were donating the vaccines to. And what this is testing is whether that is reflected in how individual people think about it. So they're kind of manipulating the country that donated it, and they're also manipulating whether it was being donated for genuine altruistic reasons or not, and then they're seeing how that affects what people think about the vaccine donation in general. So yeah, very cool. University was just a fever dream. Yeah, honestly, it was. Even now, like even the PhD has just been a fever dream. I'm still sat here like, why am I here? I don't know what I'm doing. Like, really don't know. But yeah, it's my highlights. My highlights are still there. Yay! Okay, good. What were the important parts? Let's see. Um, it is well established that offers of help are influenced by group identities and group related variables such as strength of group identification, perceived group norms, and subjectively perceived in group or out group category memberships of those in need of assistance. So yeah, so if you want to donate something to me, or if you want to help me in some way, then the social groupings that you are part of play a role in how I assess that, and also my social groupings, of course. Intergroup helping as status relations model, which suggests that high status groups can provide dependency orientated or autonomy orientated help to low status group. So they either do it for, being genuinely altruistic, they're trying to help, or they do it to try and keep the group dependent on our actions. Because okay, we're gonna get like a little bit political now. Okay, so I apologize in advance, but I'm not making any like value judgments of what I'm about to say. It's just facts. So I think actually before I even say this, I want to make a very important distinction. So there are some topics which are completely normal to study in psychology, which when you take them out into the real world, they get politicized. which means that political actors make them into an issue that is us versus them, when actually they don't need to be. They are actually just rooted in science. Um, Ironically, probably the vaccines are a really good example of this, right? The COVID vaccines became a very politicized topic when in fact they are a science topic. They are a science and a health topic. And I think what I'm about to say is probably an example of that. So the countries that we're looking at are the Philippines and Pakistan, and both of them have history of colonialism. And now colonialism can be defined in a whole bunch of ways. I'm going to use it in the kind of broad generic sense, where it doesn't necessarily involve like settling, because it doesn't have to just be that. It could also be some kind of power relation between countries where the quote unquote lower status country is dependent on the higher status country for various things. Could be resources, could be finance, could be aid, whatever. But that's kind of what this is referring to here. So the dependency orientated kind of intergroup helping would be where you are giving aid to another country in order to keep them dependent on you. And it's kind of like a power management thing, right? It's trying to make sure that they stay on your side because they do not have a choice. Whereas the autonomy orientated helping would be more like, we are giving you this aid to try and build your infrastructure so that you can become self-sufficient. I hope that that makes sense, and I hope that I've done that justice. Because yeah, sometimes these things are just really difficult to talk about in a way that's objective, because, you know, like I said, a lot of these things, they get politicized, but there is an objective side to them, or, you know, as objective as we're going to get. I'm not, okay, you know, we could go into like a whole like epistemic debate about you know, whether there is such thing as an objective truth. I'm not doing that. We're just going to assume it for now, okay? But yeah, crystal clear, perfect. Okay, I'm really glad. Well, it's funny because I get less. So I think that this in itself I find really interesting, like the kind of ecosystem around like streaming. Because the thing that I've noticed is that if people talk about political topics, a lot, like as in streamers, if streamers talk about political or politicized topics, they tend to get lumped into political streamer. And I really don't want to do that. I want us to be able to talk about things in a way that is like, you know, genuinely a conversation, but also rooted in evidence. And so please don't label me a political streamer. I've been getting nervous because I've already seen like some of my so here's a fun fact: streamers get analytics, so I can see what countries you lot are in. But I can also see what my viewers are watching, and where people are getting redirected to my channel from. And there's been a few political ones on the list, and I was like, why? And I think I know why. I think it's because I sometimes talk about politicized topics, but I'm not being political. I am just talking about them in a scientific way. Okay, right. So, back to the paper. What do you mean you can see what your viewers are watching? I can't see what they're watching. I can see where people are coming to my channels from, if that makes sense. You can see what other streamers are watching. Not entirely. Saucy backpack, yes. So I can see if there is a significant overlap in audience, I can see that. So for example, if like, I don't know, if like 10% or more of my audience are watching another streamer, well, it wouldn't be 10 because I don't have enough numbers for that, but like if like half of my viewers are watching somebody else, then I can see that. And then I can also see like what channels I appear on the recommended bar for. And yeah, the recommended bar, I'm cropping up on a lot of political streamers' bars, which is a bit weird because I'm like, I'm not in the politics section. I'm in the science and technology section. Leave me alone, you know? But yeah, psychology as a field, unfortunately, is one that is very, very politicized. I think there's a lot of science kind of, you know, manages to back away from it, which makes people's lives easier. Because, you know, you want to be able to release a paper or about your research without getting loads of angry people DMing you on Twitter. But yeah, psychology, especially the areas of psychology that are linked to what I do as a job, they are a bit bit politicized and people can get very, very angry. So I'm probably hyper aware of it, to be honest. But yeah, you can't talk about anything social without it being political in some way. So true. Even just talking about psychology in public is a statement. That is very, very true. Honestly, it is so true. No, 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 not negative, not negative. It is very true. And yeah, I've had a few instances even with my teaching where I'm trying to talk about something and people find it very personal, even if I put down my position as like I'm just trying to educate you and discussion is part of education. Even if you say that up front, there's still people that take it funny. Whether it's because of they have strong opinions about the topic you're discussing, or sometimes it's even just like who you are. Like sometimes it's just you're not the right person to be teaching this, which makes me sad. That is unfortunately something that I've had a few times, but it's fine. It is what it is. I'm not gonna avoid talking about things just because it might upset people. Like a lot of things in psychology can upset people for all sorts of reasons. This stuff's kind of it's politicized, but then there's so many other things, like for example mental health, where you can upset people because they've got personal experiences. That doesn't mean we shouldn't talk about it. It's still important too. But yeah, I think when it's like really, really, towing the line topics, I'll try and be careful. I think this is okay. Although we have managed to get like international relations and individual politics and vaccines all in one paper by accident. So if this one doesn't cause issues, I don't think anything will. That's my opinion. But yeah. Okay, right. So, where were we with this one? Helping might result from empathy and true altruistic concern for others, or it can be motivated by a desire to keep the other inferior and dependent in subtle ways, or by reputation management concerns and desire to make the in-group appear in a positive light. That's also a thing. Of course, somebody can be appearing to do something nice, and actually there's some kind of just personal reason behind it. They just want to look good, or they actually benefit tangentially in some way. Yeah, that's a thing. I can think of examples, but unfortunately they are all political examples, so I'm just going to move on. I think I actually skipped over the background of the political stuff because it's important to understand the context, but I don't think it's important to illustrate the point that's being made by the paper. But the summary of it is that the two countries that they're looking at are Pakistan and the Philippines. And in general, Pakistan is more positive towards China than the US, and the Philippines is more positive to the US than to China. That's the summary. You're welcome to go on a Wikipedia rabbit hole and find out more about all of that, but there's a lot of historical reasons. And yeah, that's not what I'm here for because I am not a politics expert. I am a psychologist. Okay, did we ever actually get to the hypotheses? I think we did. So, on the basis of the literature reviewed, hypothesize. Okay, a perception that outgroup helping is malevolently motivated by a desire for help, self-interest, and a desire to keep recipients dependent will be associated with more negative emotions about receiving assistance. A perception that the outgroup is helping is benevolently motivated by genuine concern for the in-group will be associated with fewer negative emotions about receiving assistance. Negative emotions in turn will be associated with rejection of the help that is offered. Okay, so that's there's actually a few hypotheses in there, but they're all kind of stacked together. That's okay because they have a nice little visual. So, yeah, to be honest, the reason why I added this paper to the list is because it's kind of intuitive what they're doing. But the thing is that sometimes, so like maybe you would say like, oh yeah, obviously if somebody's perceived to be doing something for their own interest, obviously that's going to make people feel negative about it. And then obviously that's going to make people more likely to reject the help. But sometimes studies show things that we weren't expecting. So it's still worth doing this research. Every now and then, You will have studies that test something that is quote unquote common sense. And yeah, it shows the complete opposite of what you would expect. So that's a thing. But yeah, to be honest, this model is kind of exactly what we would expect. So yeah, no, malevolent motives, such as like making the donation for power or to increase dependency or just out of pure self-interest will cause negative emotions, and benevolent motives will cause positive emotions. And then negative emotions will be associated with the rejection of help. That seems pretty straightforward to me. Okay, are we all on board so far? We all understand what's going on in this paper. I haven't scared anybody off, hopefully. I now have a vague memory of reading the introduction, so that's very good. Let's see. Is this all continuing the hypothesis? Oh yeah, of course, the geopolitical constellations. I remember. That's such a cute phrase. I've never heard it before. Is there anything we can highlight here? Let's see. It was expected that Filipino participants would believe that vaccine donations from China would be more malevolently motivated than donations from the US, and that donations from China would be less benevolently motivated than donations from the US. Okay, we'll just highlight that. We don't really need to highlight the opposite because it's kind of obvious. That's the whole point of contradicting them. The only thing that I'm questioning so far, and probably this is me because I skipped over the geopolitical bit, is that I don't actually know how comparable Pakistan and the Philippines are, because from what I understand, the Philippines has a direct history of colonialism from both the US and China, whereas Pakistan has a colonial history with the UK. But the US have been very heavily involved in the region in recent years, and China have been investing into them. I don't know whether those things are directly comparable. Also, as far as I understand it, the Philippines, like a big part of the US presence there was like military, and a lot of people felt like that was giving them protection from China invading. So yeah, that's another thing to consider. I'm not convinced on how comparable they are. Um, and when you're going through papers like this, you always need to make sure that you're thinking about stuff like that, because sometimes, well, not even sometimes, most of the time, people are writing their paper because they want to convince you, basically. That's it. They want to convince you. Like, they've spent their time and money, especially money, doing this research. And you want it to be worth it, really. There's a whole thing in social psychology, especially, where people get findings and it's not what they expected, and they talk about it as though that was what they expected all along, which is not ideal. So yeah, but it's kind of motivated by the fact that they have spent so much time and money. It's almost like sunk cost fallacy, I guess. Pakistan has a territorial dispute with China. I don't know how that would affect their relationship. Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Huh. Yeah, my gut instinct is that these two countries aren't actually directly comparable, and they have how can I? Okay, I'm just gonna say it. I think they've just chosen countries where they can kind of argue for the comparison, but it's mostly out of convenience. Because if we go back, I mean, there's someone from. Actually, there's a few people from London universities, but the other people are from a Filipino university and from a Pakistani university. And I don't know if that's because they were just doing the data collection. I guess we'll probably find out towards. Actually, we can find out towards the end. Let's find out. Normally, there's going to be like a little author note at the bottom telling us what everybody did. Let's see. Okay, is this. Okay, never mind. Never mind. It's just saying who funded it. Well, at least their stuff's openly available. That's good. That's good. This might also be part of the reason why they chose those countries. Both surveys were conducted in English, and both of those countries have better than average, maybe, understanding of English. given their histories. So that might have played a role too. Interesting. Interesting. I wonder if I can find an example of a paper with a good conflict of interest statement later. I'll try and do that. But good papers will have like a statement saying what everybody did on the paper. So it's called a credit statement. I can't remember what it stands for the life of me, but it's like contributor taxonomy or something. So it will say like this author wrote most of the paper, and this author devised the methodology, and this author did the data collection. It's very cool. It's a good way to kind of understand who did what, and that helps to put the paper into context. But they should also ideally have like conflict of interest statement. That just said who the funder is, which is kind of the basic information that you're meant to provide. It would have been nice to see a little bit more about like the people conducting it, because when you're researching, any kind of social topic, it's really important to consider who's actually doing the research, because the way that you think about it is going to be influenced by your own life experiences. But yeah. So anyway, the methods. So I'm guessing that they probably just ran the same study in the two countries, but we'll have a look. So the study one was in the Philippines. Actually, wait, was there anything here quickly? Let's see. Stronger reaction, blah, blah, blah. Opposite. Okay, I'll just quickly highlight that. The opposite pattern was expected in Pakistan. Let's see. They have concerns about a US desire to exert undue influence. I don't really think that's entirely comparable to what's going on with the Philippines and China, but it's okay, whatever. We'll take their word on it for now. But always read papers skeptically. Always read papers skeptically. Okay. Let's see. 2 cross-sectional online surveys. So they just ran online surveys. People filled them in. Study 1 asked Filipino participants about their acceptance or rejection of vaccines donated to the Philippines by China and the US. Study 2 focused on a sample of Pakistani participants and asked them about the same issues. The aim of conducting that was to replicate it across 2 national settings where it's expected to be opposite. Cool. Okay. Cool. Okay. We understand the study. Good. Okay. Method section. My favourite section. No, actually. Kind of. Okay. A good method section will literally give you like a step-by-step guide on how to replicate their study. So if it's a good one, I'm always like, yes, I want to do this. And then when it's a bad one, I'm like, I don't understand what's happening. What is going on here? I'm so confused. Okay, right. So in the Philippines, they had 289 Filipino participants recruited online between May and June 2021. I feel like that, May and June 2021, that's a pretty good time to be doing this, because I think that was at like the height of all of the geopolitical stuff about vaccine donations. Let's see. Okay, it was roughly gender balanced to what you'd expect in the population. Mean age was 31 and a half. Okay, cool. So the mean is telling us like the average, basically. And then the standard deviation is basically telling us how far away from that the sample varied. I don't know how else to describe that to you. I'm sorry. Like I said, I just woke up from a nap. Okay. The survey was in English. 99% reported speaking the language well or very well. Other demographic features of the sample showed that 92% of the sample characterized themselves as middle or upper class. Ooh, interesting. Okay. Is this... Oh, and 99% reported completing at least high school. Okay. So this is... Not really. And it was advertised on Facebook. Okie dokie. So, based on these demographics, can you see an issue with this? 92% of the sample characterized themselves as middle or upper class. I can't speak about the religious breakdown in the Philippines. I don't know anything about it. 99% reported completing at least high school degree. Advertised on Facebook, yes. Advertised on Facebook. Multiple issues indeed, yes. So the sample, if you're just looking at these kind of like what we'd call like kind of of essential demographics, the age, the gender, the number. Those are okay. Well, is the number okay? We'll come to that in a second. The age and the gender breakdown seems okay, but the fact that 92% of the sample characterised themselves as middle or upper class is slightly concerning, because 92% of the population are not middle or upper class. It's actually the minority of the population. The majority of the population, in theory, should characterise themselves as working class. So that, and it's also, yeah, that's suggesting that there is a very specific part of the population being targeted by this study. And they are people that would probably have more they have more time to look into these kinds of issues, right? I think that's fair to say. Normally, if people are on a lower income bracket, they're kind of more focused on like surviving. They are working as much hours as they can so that they can make enough money to exist. And sometimes politics kind of just falls beyond them, and sometimes they also maybe didn't get the education that they needed, especially if they came from that kind of background growing up as well. And all of that together means that oftentimes they haven't been taught the right skills to evaluate these kinds of situations, like with geopolitics, but also with vaccines. And that in itself means that this study is sampling a group of people that would already have a lot more knowledge about vaccines and geopolitics than the average person. It's going to be interesting to see how that compares to Pakistan. I wonder if actually there is. Okay. Oh, okay. It was the same, roughly. The same, roughly, in Pakistan. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Does a paper like this have to go through rigorous review before being published like it was? Yes. It was peer reviewed. So it was actually revised based on the peer review as well. So I'm not sure who peer reviewed it. This is a problem that I would have personally highlighted, is your sample. I wonder if they talked about it. There's a discussion section and they should have addressed these kinds of things. To be fair, there is also footnotes, which I'm always like frustrated that they put them at the end instead of like where they're actually useful. Because I wish I could just read this as I was going through, because that would provide the context that I actually need. Okay, very quickly skim this. I'm sorry, I can't read chat and read the paper at the same time. Let's see. I am not seeing anything about education or socio-economic status. Okay, wait. No, it's not there. Oh my gosh. They didn't... This doesn't seem right. Oh, there we go. So, given our sampling approach is unsurprisingly... What? Maybe that's the context we need as well. I don't know. Our sampling approach... Oh, okay. So did they even do actual ads? Did they just actually post it on Facebook? Wait a second. I'm so confused. I'm so confused already. Oh dear. I think they might have said that they advertised it on Facebook, but they actually mean they just shared it on Facebook. That's... Yeah. Okay. This is something I would have brought up in peer review, to be honest. I also think that people might be more inclined to report as middle class because that is their normal. Maybe. Like I said, I don't know anything about how like socioeconomic status works in the Philippines, so I can't really comment on it. Thank you for the posture check and hydrate. Thank you, M0. I was just talking away and I did not hydrate, and I have now. Thank you, thank you. Um, yeah, no, maybe it might just be a feature of the Philippines, but given that they found exactly the same thing in Pakistan, which I also don't know very much about, but given that it was part of the uh oh gosh, how can I say this in a non-offensive way? It was part of the British Empire that lumped everything in that region together for a very long time. Um, so I wouldn't be surprised if they have some variation of a caste system, in which case socioeconomic status would be very, very important. Um, I mean, caste and socioeconomic status are different, but they are linked in some ways. So generally, somebody who's upper middle class would be they'd be more likely to be in certain castes, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's a thing in Pakistan. Should I look? I'll look it up very, very quickly. Give me a second. Give me a second, because I need to know. I need to know. These things bother me, you know. Right. Is there a caste system in Pakistan? Oh, it's actually the top search. There is. Okay. Yes, there is a caste structure in Pakistan. Interesting. So, that means that it was probably not very diverse in terms of caste either, which means it was probably just not very diverse at all, which means that they are probably targeting people who they know and who they met at university. um yeah, interesting, very interesting. uh I'm so sorry, I'm so behind on chat. I was going off on my own little tangent. Oh no, one of my lights went off. No, let me put it back on. I need it. It's in the shape of a toaster. It's very important to me. Um, okay, it has probably been reviewed. It's not wrong to have a sample bias if you acknowledge it, but I'm sus about them doing general statements of the population. Yeah, me too. I think that, like, we know that socioeconomic status and political knowledge, they basically just go hand in hand. Like, they are so strongly correlated. So, yeah, unless they've controlled for it in their statistical analyses, in which case I'll give them, I won't give them the full benefit of the doubt, but I'll be like, okay, you've tried. It's initial evidence. You can do a more robust, large scale study further down the road. Whatever, it's cool. But if they don't control for political knowledge, then I'm gonna be like, slightly problematic. Okay, right. So, how did they recruit people for the Filipino study? Let's find out. Also, team footnotes. Yes, definitely team footnotes. What end notes are? They make me angry. They make me so angry. They are so frustrating. I don't want to have to scroll down like 7 pages in order to find out what you're talking about. Oh, honestly. Anyway, right. We posted the invitation to various Filipino Facebook groups to invite willing participants. Sorry, the way that was phrased made me laugh because I don't know, something about that was funny. Willing participants. the landing the landing page simply stated that this was a survey that will ask you about your views about the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, that in itself is already asking for a biased sample. So we have this like ethical problem in psychology where so yeah, deception. Deception is a thing. I wonder what the Facebook groups were. That is such a good point because if they were just recruiting from like, imagine if they were just recruiting from political Facebook groups. That would be not ideal. If they were based on that education, I have a feeling they might have been recruiting from like university alumni type of groups or like working professionals or something like that. Or maybe even just like, I don't know, like community engagement groups. But there's clearly some kind of bias going on in the way that they selected their Facebook groups. Ideally, they should have done like an actual random sample of Facebook groups, but then you have to pay very large amounts of money to access any social media's API, which is very annoying. But understandable, but also annoying. So yeah. Um, but yeah, the landing page said it was about the pandemic, and that in itself is slightly problematic because if you've got people. So the way that you frame the study, it will affect whether or not people participate in it when it's a kind of opt-in thing like this. Um, if you say that it's about the COVID-19 pandemic, the average person who's like just going about their life and trying to survive the lockdowns and stuff like that, they're just going to ignore it basically. They'll be like, oh, I don't have time, that's effort. The people that you're going to attract is more likely to be the people that have very strong opinions about it. Um, yeah, because and all people that just enjoy doing surveys, but they're a unique group in themselves. Um, so you have to, if you're trying to get like a less biased approach, you have to have a level of deception. But normally that would mean making a much vaguer statement and then thoroughly debriefing people at the end. Because a little bit of deception is okay. You can obscure what the study's about as long as it's justified and as long as you're not going to be potentially harming people in the process. So, if they're taking part in the study and you'd said it's like, I don't know, we're going to ask your opinions about, I don't know, you couldn't even say healthcare at the time. Even that was like a bit wacky. We're going to ask you your opinions about, I don't know, something. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I'm still half asleep. But yeah, you take part in a study and it's just like, we're asking you about your opinions on a wide range of topics. And you go through and then you get to the end and they're like, by the way, this was about the pandemic. And well, actually, it would be more specific than that. They'd be like, by the way, this was about, vaccines, vaccine donations. Then the worst thing that's going to happen is that you'll be like mildly annoyed. Like, you're not going to be harmed by that process. Deception's an issue if you don't tell people that you did it, and also if it could negatively affect them in the long run, or even just in the moment, to be honest. So, like, if you were saying, like, oh, yeah, this study is about your opinions about, I don't know, watching paint dry, and then suddenly there's like really graphic descriptions of some kind of abuse in there. That's got a risk of harming people because you've not warned them about the topic. When but when it's like a kind of like controversial but not individually sensitive topic like this, deception's a bit more okay. But most countries have pretty well countries that have psychology as a well-established field have pretty thorough ethical guidelines about what you can and can't do. Personally, I'm bearish on watching paint dry. Imagine if that was an actual thing. Imagine if you like signed up to a study and it was like, well, you're going to be watching paint dry, but then you actually did. Could you imagine? That'd be awful. I've done some studies that felt like watching paint dry. The worst ones are the ones where you're just clicking a button over and over again for like 2 hours. Honestly, they're no. I've done my time, and now my time is spent trying to convince other people to do their time. um. Okay. Right. So where do we go? Information about confidentiality, anonymization, and so on. All very important stuff. I should probably do just like a thing about research ethics at some point, but we can keep just talking about it when it comes up. We invited participants who completed the study to share the poster and link with others. Okay, so it was like snowball sampling, and then there was the chance for a raffle. Okay, that's also problematic, because if you do a raffle, and I'm speaking from experience now, if you do from a raffle for like a gift card or something, then you are just, in this day and age when it's online, you are asking for bots to spam your survey. And the thing is, they say here that the raffle sign up is like separate to the rest of the response. That means nothing because most people don't read. Okay, they will see there is a raffle for a thing, and then they will go, oh, cool. And then if they've got any kind of tech knowledge, they will just sit there, or they don't even need it anymore. They can just use ChatGPT or something. They will just bash out a script and be like, yeah, like, here is my script to just randomly click through the survey and get my raffle, and they'll run it like 50 times, and then they sit there and do it manually, and they realize, oh, this wasn't the right survey, and then you've got loads of junk data, and just by chance some of it is going to end up looking like an actual participant. So yeah. Uh, so that's also problematic. I am speaking from experience with that because that happened to one of mine. I think one of the studies that I did, I had like 1,200 responses, and only about 300 were actually people, and the rest of them were bots. And it was because I'd said there's a giveaway for a voucher, and it was in a different it was in a different survey that you got redirected to at the end. You'd have to click a link to go to it, and unfortunately people didn't read, and yeah, it's ended up having thousands, well, not thousands, but over 1,000 responses that were just rubbish. So cool, very nice. We love being a psychologist in this day and age. I love tech. No, I actually do. It's actually made it a lot helpful, but it's fine. It's fine. Okay. Um. So, where were we? Because it is shown that effects stabilize at oh no. Okay, wait. Because it has been shown that effects stabilize at around n equals 250, so that's 250 participants taking part in the study. We aimed for a sample exceeding this number, as this sample size has also generated sufficient power to detect similar effects in previous work on intergroup helping. In addition, a priori power analysis, assuming, okay, this is maths. So basically, they've done a little analysis to see how many people they should get to take part in their study. They used alpha of 0.05. So that's basically, there's a 5% chance that you'll get a false positive. And then power of 0.8. So that's 80% chance of getting a true positive. So you kind of, the numbers kind of trade off, but you want to have a good chance of actually finding an effect that exists, because just like random chance means that sometimes you won't be able to measure something that's actually there. And the power analysis is trying to make sure that you're actually getting enough participants in your study so that that's probably not going to happen, or that you won't find a false positive, so you won't find an effect when it doesn't actually exist, because that can also happen. You can measure something that doesn't happen just because of the way that randomness works. It just kind of like spontaneously happens sometimes. But okay, they've done the power analysis. That's grand. I don't. There's no information about how they've done the power analysis though. So when you're working out how many participants you need in your study, you need to look at how many variables that you're putting into your study, and then calculate it based on that, and including the false positive rate and the true positive rate. In theory, they should be documenting how exactly they did that, but I'm not really seeing much about that. Like, I think it feels like they've just kind of put in the bare minimum to say, like, yeah, this is enough people, trust me, bro. They've also not said anything about exclusions. So every time that you run a study, there's always going to be like a certain number of people that you have to filter out from your data set. You can't run your analysis on them because they might be bots, or they might have completed the survey in a very, very odd way, or they might have just like stopped halfway through and then come back to it. But there's no information about that either, which is a bit weird. So yeah, when I was reading the introduction, I was like, yeah, this makes sense. This is cool. And now I'm reading the methods and I'm like, okay. But we'll see what the results say, because this time, I will actually be able to read the results and hopefully understand what they mean. But I can't promise anything. But I will do my best. I'll do my best. Numbers aren't my strong point, unfortunately. Okay. Right. So, measures. So measures is all just going to be the scales that they're using, and the manipulation that they're doing. So the manipulation is just the kind of experimental condition. Well, I assume that there's an experimental condition because they kind of implied it in the abstract. Right. Items to measure malevolent motives were assessed with a total of 6 items on a 5-point Likert scale. So a Likert scale is just like when it's on a range. So it's, in this case, it starts from strongly agree. Oh, sorry, strongly disagree, and then I assume it goes like strongly disagree, slightly disagree, neither agree nor disagree, slightly agree, strongly agree. So it's just going through, and you can assign a number to each of them, and it kind of approximates how people are like how people would act towards it, but not entirely. Just because somebody said something on a scale doesn't mean that that's how they actually feel, and it also doesn't mean that's how they would actually behave in real life if it happened to them. But you know, it's what we've got. We're working with very limited resources. Please, government, give us more money. um, but yeah. Okay. So, 5-point Likert scale included perceived assertion of power, reinforcing dependency, and self-interest. So they're measuring all of those different like sub facets of the kind of malevolent helping all in one go. Uh, Participants were asked to indicate why they thought China and the US would give vaccines to the Philippines. The order in which the targets were presented were counterbalanced in both studies. Because they want to demonstrate their superiority and higher status, because they want to show us that they're more powerful, because they want to keep us dependent on them, and because they want us to be indebted to them. Okay, because it's in their best interest, because they think it's best for themselves, and then they were all correlated, and then it was combined into an overall scale. The reliabilities for the malevolent motives index was alpha equals 0.85 for the Chinese outgroup and 0.89 for the American outgroup. So the alpha is basically just measuring like if you have the full scale, all of the items in it, and you kind of average them together, and then you take out one thing at a time, do you keep finding the same score over and over again? Do you keep finding it? It's a way to kind of check that the scale is consistently measuring the same thing in each question. Every now and then you'll get a scale where it's meant to, and then like a few questions just really don't work. Like they don't measure the thing according to everything else, and sometimes that means you need to get rid of them. But yeah, this 0.85 and 0.89, they're all right. They're decent. It's time for me to have a drink again. My throat is getting sore. Are we all like on board with this paper so far? Do we understand what I'm rambling about? Because I'm worried that I'm just talking and everyone's like zoning out like they would do in a lecture. I don't want that, you know. I want to actually like, you know, not be a cringe lecturer that just talks. Okay, I have drunk. I am able to function again. Paper sounds good. Cool, cool, cool. I think this one's a lot more straightforward than the previous one. I should have started with this one to be honest, because yeah, it's a bit easier to explain. It's a bit more intuitive, but also the method's a bit simpler. Following, good stuff. Super interesting. Love that. Cool. Okay, right. Perceived benevolent motives. So this is just the same thing again. Alpha was 0.93 and 0.91, so it's actually a bit better. Let's see. Negative emotions about receiving help. So they. Okay, so these previous scales about malevolent and benevolent. Also, mouthful. Malevolent and benevolent motives. They've kind of. It seems like they've just made up their own scale, which is a very common thing in psychology. We love, well, especially social psychology, we'd love to just like make up our own scale. However, as we have learned from the wife test, making up your own scale doesn't mean it's a good scale. Making your questionnaire does not mean you are measuring the right thing. They haven't put in any information about how they developed these measures, which is a slight red flag for me personally. Although there is an end note. Let's have a look. I feel like I'm walking across the room to get to these end notes. Right. Oh, they did. Okay. To explore whether. Okay, they did an exploratory factor analysis, which is basically just yeeting the items together and seeing if they do the right thing. It extracted only 2 factors, with the malevolent loading on one and benevolent loading on the other. Okay. No notable. Okay, okay. So this is telling us, like, I don't even know how to describe this. Like, factor analysis is something I've actually taught. and I don't know how to how to convey it because it's just like maths. It's really grim. But basically, you put all of the items into. No, I actually don't know how to describe this. I'm so sorry. It's just basically testing whether they all measure the same thing. Um, and it seems like broadly they do, but this lower number, 0.52, is a bit low for me. Bye, Miguel. Enjoy your class. Yeah, see you on the next stream. Thank you for joining us. Um, yeah, it's a bit low, the 0.52. Yeah, have a good day, Miguel. Definitely. Um, no notable cross loadings. That's good. That means that the two scales weren't kind of. There was no there was no thing on the scale which was measuring both at the same time, which is obviously not what you want for a scale like that because they're meant to be measuring opposite things. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It seems like they've just kind of made it up, which isn't the right way to develop a scale. Questionnaires, they're difficult to get right. There's an entire subfield of it's like an overlap of psychology and statistics. It's called psychometrics, dedicated to just developing scales that actually measure the thing that we're meant to be measuring. And this seems a bit more ad hoc, like they've just kind of done it. I can't judge because I have been in a similar situation, and if you're doing exploratory work, there's not really much more that you can do. So there's a difference between exploratory research, which is just kind of like testing out an idea and seeing if it might have anything useful in it, versus confirmatory research, which is a more kind of systematic exploration of something with like a very specific goal in mind. This seems a bit more exploratory, in which case I would give them a bit more benefit of the doubt, but they really have to qualify that in their discussion section, but we haven't got there yet. So, yeah. Let's see. Rejection of. Okay, right. No, sorry. Negative emotions. So that was adapted from a scale, an existing scale. Negative emotional reactions to receiving help. Or actually, I'm assuming it's a scale. It might just be another one that they've made up. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah. 5-point scale. Cool. Positive to negative, good to bad, happy, sad. How does it make you feel? How does it make you feel if the Philippines receive vaccine donations from the US or from China? Okay, cool. And they had pretty good internal reliabilities as well. We love that. And then rejection of vaccine donations. 2 items for each of the Chinese and American targets. The Philippines should reject vaccine donations from China and the US. The Philippines should not accept help from China and the US. Yeah, that's basically just a rewording of the same thing, but clearly it wasn't exactly a rewording because that should have been higher. The alpha should have been higher, but you know, it works. It works. And then this and the subsequent study received ethics clearance. Good. All aspects of the research were in line with the British Psychological Society ethical guidelines. So that was what I said about having, yeah, we've got like quite strict ethical guidelines when we're conducting research because, you know, I joke about putting people in a lab and doing strange things to them, but there are some strange things that I cannot do legally, but also it would just be wrong of me to do it. We don't want people to distrust psychologists because then people won't do our studies anymore. So yeah, we need to find the right balance between doing research that is helpful and is needed, but also doesn't put anybody at risk and also doesn't put our reputations at risk. That's really important too. I'm gonna have another quick drink. But yeah, does that all make sense? I feel like I've once again just spent a large chunk of time waffling about scales, and it's like, is that even interesting? Like, are those kinds of details actually interesting? Is that the kind of thing that you want to know, or is there something else that you would want to know? That was a big drink on my part. You're acquiring knowledge and enjoying it. Nice. We love that. We love that. What sounded weird? What sounded weird? What, acquiring knowledge and enjoying it? That's not weird. I enjoy acquiring knowledge. That's why I'm putting myself through an absolute state of suffering or on a daily basis. Referring to my PhD, not streaming. Streaming's fun. Okay. Right. Results. This is the juicy bit. This is the maths. Buckle in. We're gonna do some numbers. How exciting. I'm gonna do my best. But sometimes numbers, I have to be like in the right mindset to understand the numbers. I'm not convinced I'm in the right mindset, but we'll do the best that we can. Oh no, they're doing structural equation modelling. Oh no. Oh no. I haven't done that in years. Okay. We'll try. Right. Okay. So they've built a model where they're putting in the country. So it sounds to me like what they've done is what we'd call a repeated measures design. So every participant, they have measured their response to donation from China and their response to a donation from the US. And they've kind of like what we call counterbalanced it. So, half of the people that are going through the study see China first and half the people going through the study see the US first. So they're building a model, a statistical model, which no, the maths is not working today. Today is not a numbers day. I am so sorry. It is not happening. My brain is no. Structural equation modeling 5 head. Yeah. Structural equation modeling is like the kind of thing where I need to actually just like have the reference material open when I do it. Like if it's regression, I'm just like, yeah, let's do it. Because I do regression all the time. Structural equation modeling I've not actually done since my master's, so I cannot remember how to do it. It's like so far outside of my skill set. I like leave it to my colleagues. Yeah, so that's a thing. Let's see. Like I understand conceptually roughly how it works. What is that? I wish I could help you. I wish I could help you, Talaran, but I can't. I can't even describe it. It's kind of like a way of accounting for. So every variable has variance, right? The way that people respond to each of the scales is different. It's got variance. The number varies anywhere from 1 to 5. Structural equation modeling, as far as I understand it, it takes that variable and it splits it down into variance that is caused by the actual underlying construct, so the thing that you're trying to measure, and error variance, so variance that's just kind of all over the place just because it is. Like, things happen randomly all the time. People sometimes respond just in a strange way because in a way that we can't predict. But also sometimes there's other variables that we haven't thought to measure that is influencing our measurement. So I guess in this example, probably the fact that they haven't measured political knowledge, I would say that would be maybe a chunk of the error variance. Yeah. Because it seems like they haven't measured political knowledge, which is a bit. But yeah, it kind of breaks down that variance in each variable. So it'll be like the positive response, the negative response, the positive emotions, the negative emotions, into those two constituents, and then kind of puts it all together and sees how everything interacts. And you get some like interesting visualizations out of it, but honestly that is the extent of my understanding. Which, yeah, let me look it up real quick. Structural equation modeling. It's a multivariate statistical analysis technique that's used to analyze structural relationships. That doesn't help, does it? I think that my explanation was fine. It's breaking things down into like, yeah, variables. You're seeing how things how things fit together, basically. You know, do these two scales actually measure the same thing, the same concept? And then if they do, what's the proportion of it that is actually due to the concept, and what's the proportion of it that is just mess, basically? Does that make sense? I hope that that makes sense, because I don't even feel confident in my explanation of that. I really do not feel confident. Like, as far as I understand it, it's kind of like it's a combination of techniques. But yeah. Yes, okay, good. Good, good, good. Oh, I'm so glad. This is one of the things where, like, I would literally, if I was teaching it in class, I would have my notes. Well, I wouldn't be teaching it in class because I don't know how to do it, but you know, my notes would be very, very in front of me, and I would be referring to them constantly, and I don't have my notes, and I'm like, do I even know things? If I don't have the paper that says I know the thing, do I even know the thing? Like, I don't know what's going on. I'm scared. I'm scared, and I don't know what it means. But yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Okay. Right. So, I'm just gonna kind of skip to the picture. So we've got a significant relationship between malevolent motives and negative emotions about receiving help, which is what was predicted. We've got a negative relationship between benevolent motives and negative emotions, which was what was predicted. And we have a positive relationship between negative emotions about receiving help and rejection of help, which was also what was expected. So, as a very cursory first glance, it seems like they've met their hypotheses. However, my cursor is visible. Okay, good. So this top bit, I assume that the top one is. Oh wait, hang on. The first coefficient is for the Filipino sample responding to the Chinese target. The second coefficient is for the Filipino responding to the US target. Okay, so US was not as strong as they were expecting. So that's got a p-value of 0.05. So the rest of these, they've all got p-values that are like less than 0.0001. Sorry, 0.01. Which means that there's like less than a 1%. There's like a 0.1% chance that you would find what they've got just randomly. This one, there's a 5% chance that they found that randomly. Given that all of the other relationships are going in the predicted direction, that's probably fine. That's probably just, it probably does, probably is there, but it's just maybe a bit weaker due to whatever reason. But that being said, I would be very interested to see if that replicates with a more diverse sample in terms of socioeconomic status. I have a feeling it might not be, because 0.13, people say that that's an okay, like, strength of relationship in psychology, but I am not super convinced, especially given they haven't told us certain things about the measures and the sample and things like that. I don't know. I'm feeling a little bit skeptical, not overly skeptical, but a little bit. If a tree falls in a forest and you don't have the paper to say it fell, honestly, no, it's not even that. It's like, if you can write a paper about the tree, but then, like, if nobody cites it, did you even write the paper? Oh dear. It does feel like that sometimes. It feels like sometimes scientists are like, what's that? There's no paper. It doesn't exist. And it's like, yeah, that's why psychology, especially, we've got a whole bunch of things that we should know because they're fairly well documented. They're just not documented in the right places yet. So yeah, that can be a problem sometimes, especially when you're talking about, like, certain populations that are less likely to engage with academics. You know, there's like a bias there already. They don't want to take part in the research, so you don't find the thing that is affecting them, but then you're also not looking at the information that they're producing themselves. It creates a vicious cycle. It's a thing. Anyway, okay, right. Next, it was tested whether in line with. Okay, wait. Is there going to be more? Oh, okay. Wait. So next, it was tested whether in line with the predictions, indeed, mean level differences would emerge in response to help authored by China compared to the US, influenced by perceived international political relations. A repeated measures ANOVA was conducted with all 8 variables, featuring in 2 of the structural equation models. Blah, blah, blah. Oh my gosh. You can tell that I woke up from a nap. I keep saying not that long ago, but I swear it's been like an hour already. But yeah, I'm still not functional. I probably won't be functional for the rest of the day, in all honesty. But yeah, repeated measures ANOVA. I don't get this because they are basically just now running a specific type of regression. Thank you for the head pat. They're basically running a specific type of regression, but they like regression is a part of structural equation modeling anyway, so they're basically just running another test to see whether the first test was right, but then it's like pretty much the same test. That's I don't know, that doesn't make sense to me, but you know, you do you go. Um Perceived malevolent motives by China, perceived malevolent motives by the US, perceived benevolent motives by China, and perceived benevolent motives by the US. Negative emotional. Oh, goodness gracious. Did they run. Wait a second. All 8 variables on. On what? What? Am I having a moment? Am I having a moment? Oh, just overall responses? But. But. Okay, no. I think I'm just having a moment. I don't remember overall response being an actual thing that they wrote about in their hypotheses, but okay. Um, be mindful. You've redeemed the be mindful. I feel like I need it reading this paper, honestly. Right, so be mindful. I was given these like mindfulness prompt thingies, daily prompts for mindfulness. Let's see what the one for today is. By the way, you don't have to do this now. We don't have to do it on stream, but it is a requirement that if somebody redeems it, that we all have to go away and do this. So, promise me you'll do it. Okay, right. Right, the question is... Oh, that's a big question. That is a spicy question. When in your life were you happiest? Take 10 undistracted minutes to answer the following question with regards to your life in this present moment. You can write about it in a journal or you can just think about it. But yeah, when in your life were you happiest? That is a big question. That's a very big question. Huh. 10 minutes? Yeah, I know. It's a very, very long time. When in my life was I happiest? How can I talk about that without like doxing myself? That's a very difficult one. I mean, I feel like now, to be honest. I feel like my life's pretty good right now. I think how can I talk about this without saying too much? So I'm happy to say that the reason why I got into psychology originally was because I had a bit of a weird upbringing. You thought we were gonna do breathing exercises? No, no, no. These things are deep. These things are deep. So for me personally, yeah, I got into psychology because I had a bit of a weird upbringing. Originally, I wanted to like be like a mental health support type of person, like a clinical psychologist or something. But then I realized that therapy was not for me, and that's why I went into social psychology. Is because I feel like with social psychology, you can do stuff that's really helpful for society, assuming you're smart about what you do. Um, but because my life was very strange when I was younger, and then was also quite strange in my very early 20s, it meant that it wasn't, I wouldn't describe myself as a particularly happy person for a long time. But I think in the last like 5 years, just slightly more than 5 years, things have got a lot better. And I would say that things right now are probably the best that they have ever been in general. You know, I'm doing a job that I enjoy. I've got a really fun hobby. which is, obviously streaming. I get to talk to all of you. I get to do art. I don't have any like. I'm in a very lucky position where like my job is part time, but I'm also not in any like I'm not having financial concerns. So yeah, I'd say probably now. I feel like my life's pretty fulfilling. Yeah, and I hope that everybody can get to that point eventually. I think a big part of it is I think part of it, to be honest, is just getting older, and kind of having more experiences and learning more about the world and putting my previous experiences into context. I think part of it is also having learned how to actually set boundaries, which is a very important skill to learn. I would very much advocate for learning how to yeah, uh, find find be able to communicate what you're okay with and what you're not okay with. And I would also say a big part of it is having a good social support network. And remember, that doesn't necessarily have to be in person. Obviously I've got husbando mod with me in person, but other than that, don't really see friends in person that much. But I have a very very good network of online friends, which I am extremely grateful for. So yeah, I would say when in my life was I happiest? It's now. Yeah, go and spend 10 minutes thinking about that question and ask yourself why. If it isn't now, why? If it's a time in the future that you're anticipating, ask yourself why as well. What can you do to get there? And then if you can think of something that's making you not as happy as you could be, a lot of things are not in our control, but a lot of things are. I think it's really important to always remember that. Yeah. Oof, that was very deep. That was a very deep moment for you to enter and quietly find a seat, Crimo. Welcome in. Thank you for joining us. Even though I know it's so early there. Like, thank you, thank you. But yeah, that was a tangent, wasn't it? That was a very deep tangent. We've got to know each other quite intimately now. Ooh. I wasn't prepared for that. I thought we were just going to be doing science paper. Goodness gracious. Um, but yeah, okay, right. So the paper. We are. Where are we? What are we doing? Who are we? Where are we? We are doing a repeated measures ANOVA. So we are seeing whether changing those variables, the perceived motives and the emotional reactions, and the rejection of help, whether those things contribute to something which I still don't understand what overall responses is. I still don't understand it, but they've said it and we're rolling with it. VTubing has been wonderful for making friends. Yeah, so true, so true. It's honestly so good. Like, it's great. It's great, honestly. Also, like, can we take a moment to just like appreciate how nice just like the VTuber community is in general? Like, I know that's there's like a bit. Well, from what I've seen, there's a bit of a thing where like it gets branded as a very dramatic community, but that hasn't actually been my experience. I think it's been very nice so far. Thank you for the follow, not the brain. I hope you're enjoying, and I hope you're following the paper because I'm trying my best. But yeah, um, yeah. So, all pairwise comparisons were significant at 0.001. Cool. So all of their comparisons were significant. So they all had significant differences between them. As predicted, perceived malevolence motives were stronger, benevolent motives weaker, negative emotional reactions stronger, and rejection stronger for the Chinese target compared to the US target. Am I hello, not the brain, welcome in. Am I missing something here? Did they just put in I'm confused. Right. No. I need to understand this and I am confused and we are going back to it. We are going back to it. Let's see. So, mean levels of difference would emerge in response to help offered by China compared to the US, influenced by perceived international political relations. A repeated measures ANOVA was conducted with all 8 variables. Okay, unless I'm completely misunderstanding this, they have basically just yeeted all of these into a repeated measures ANOVA, but that's not really how a repeated measures ANOVA is meant to work. Um, that might be getting a little bit too technical, but I think that they might have not quite done the right test for what they're trying to look for. I think they've possibly made it a little bit too complicated when they could have just done a direct comparison. Like they could have made what we call like a contrast variable that would just compare China and the US. But maybe I'm misunderstanding what they've done. But yeah, if I was reading this, I would be like, I do not understand why you have done this analysis. Well, I am reading it. Sorry, if I was reviewing it. Oh, I need a drink. Ah. I've been very lucky that all the friends I've made have been down to earth and not drama hungry. They're all very mature in that regard. Not saying that complaining is bad, just sometimes it gets bandwagoning on Twitter. Yeah. To be fair, I think maybe my experience has been a bit biased because obviously everybody that's been involved in my streams, they're all people that are in some way interested in psychology, right? Or in science in general. And that in itself is probably a barrier to drama because it's people that are here to learn something more than anything else. Which I mean, I really like that. That's exactly what I wanted. But yeah, there's definitely I think it's probably that thing where it's like a loud minority, kind of like causing all of the noise, and it's not necessarily an actual representative thing. Because I think honestly, from what I've seen, most VTubers are just chilling. Like they just want to play their games and chill and like meet other VTubers and make friends. And then like the viewers are largely the same. They just want to vibe. So yeah, a propensity for critical thought. Absolutely, yeah. That probably does play a big role. And hopefully, even if somebody doesn't have an initial propensity for critical thought, they learn it by the time they're done with one of my streams. That's the goal anyway. That's the goal. But you know, a girl can dream. Okay, right. So they've concluded that in the paper, they've concluded overall the data suggests that perceived motives of outgroups for offering intergroup help are associated with what? With weather. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm starting to get to the point where I can't actually read. So I think we can power through study 2 because it's literally the same study in a different sample. Well, in theory, it should be the same study in a different sample. If it's not, I'm going to be sad. But yeah, okay. I can do this. I can talk. I promise. Right. Perceived malevolent and benevolent motives were associated with a preference for rejecting or accepting the help at a national level, and the effect was mediated by emotional reaction. Mediated? You didn't. Oh no, okay, I guess there was a mediation. By negative emotional reactions to being offered help. Gambare, thank you. Moreover, there was clear evidence that intergroup relations between countries are associated with reactions to offers of help. Okay. Yes. Personally, I would have really liked to see a more direct. No, I guess. Okay, to be fair, I guess with this makes sense. But yeah, the way that they've set up their tests, I think they're not testing what they think it's testing. So if I was in their position, I would have just done like a direct comparison. I would have assigned contrasts. So you can contrast the two things that you want to compare, and I would have done what's called what is it called actually? A dependent samples t-test, which compares the US response and the China response directly on the motives, and then a second one on the emotional reaction, And then if that works, then you could have put it all into a regression model. But I'm a regression girl. What can I say? Also, probably most of you are listening to this like, what is she talking about? Regression, contrasts? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about. I just get excited, okay? So I like running my own things on data. I like seeing what happens, okay? That's a big part of science, is being like, I wonder if I can do this a different way. It's fun though. Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad. I hope, if nothing else, I hope it gives you like a bit of insight into how, like, obviously I'm trained, like I kind of see a PhD like an apprenticeship to be a scientist. So like I'm in my final stages of my quote unquote apprenticeship, and I'm gonna become a big grown up scientist like this year probably. Well, no, hopefully, definitely. Come on, we're positive in this house. And this is kind of how I would think about a paper when I'm reading it critically, and if I was actually peer reviewing it. Funnily enough, I actually did get a peer review request the other day. Like, I got asked to review another scientist's paper, but I turned it down because I'm not actually, like, I'm taking a break from my PhD at the minute for, like, I'm on sick leave because I injured myself. So I was like, no, because I'm not going to be back in the next, like, well, I'm going to be back, but I'm not going to be functional in the next, like, 30 days. Like, I need to catch up with my own stuff before I can start reviewing other people's stuff. But yeah, I found that kind of funny. Like, I'm actually getting asked to review papers now, which is kind of wild. Like, I don't know. It makes me feel like I'm actually doing something, which is pretty cool. Thank you. It is awesome. It's exciting. Yeah. I feel so sorry for whoever has to review my papers when they eventually go out for review. But you know, that's a different issue. Okay, right. So the study was repeated in Pakistan. The general theoretical model was expected to emerge, but in the opposite direction. So positive more positive towards China than the US. 275 Pakistani participants recruited online. Oh, the mean age was about 10 years younger. Interesting. It was also in English. 95% reported good or excellent proficiency in English. Yeah, most of the sample were middle class or higher, again, which definitely throws an issue because socioeconomic status and caste kind of, they don't go exactly hand in hand, but they're quite highly correlated. And that means that, yeah, a well educated and well off sample of the demographic, sample of the population even, who probably put a bit more emphasis on understanding geopolitics are taking part, which would almost certainly skew the results. They advertised it through WhatsApp and Facebook. Okay, not exactly the same. Interesting. The study link was posted in different Facebook and WhatsApp groups with a request to also forward it to other personal contacts. So they were doing the snowball sampling effect again. The fact that they haven't used exactly the same platform is kind of interesting. But then it's really hard to directly compare who's using different types of social media anyway. So fair enough, but also, you know, it's sounds like it's kind of dependent on starting with the researchers and the groups that they're in and then moving it forward into different groups, which, yeah, if it's just like friends of friends of friends of friends, that in itself is already introducing massive biases, because people tend to kind of stick with people that are similar to them in certain ways. So yeah, that probably explains the class and religion and education demographics. Okay. Although to be fair, 98% as Islam in Pakistan. From what I understand, that makes sense. I think that's still a little bit high compared to even the official statistics, but I don't know. Okay. Following the same logic, we aim for a sample size of 250. Did they actually? Yeah, no, they did say what their sample size was. Hi Phil, welcome in, welcome in. I am not gonna lie, I have spent this whole time just like roasting this paper. I am reviewer two. I am reviewer two on this paper. I've just been sat here like, what are they doing? This isn't a real measure. What is this? statistical analysis they're doing. That doesn't make sense for the context. But yeah. Otherwise, things are good. How are you? But yeah, okay. So the measures are all the same. Give in to the dark side. Yes, I already have. So all of the measures were the same as in the previous studies. Interesting. Ooh, editing, roasting a kombucha paper. Ooh, that's interesting. As in a paper like about kombucha? I have so many questions. What? I want to know what. I know that you can't tell me, but I'm so interested. Okay, 99. Okay, 90% of Pakistanis are Muslim. Interesting. Well, this is 98%, so that does seem high. Kombucha gang. Basically, I got suckered into making my own kombucha. Right. Okay. Interesting. That sounds like a process. Isn't kombucha basically just fermented tea? I don't actually know. I've never had it. The only thing I know about kombucha is that like old Vine meme. Or is it Vine or is it TikTok? I don't know. They're the same platform to me. I'm a boomer. But you know the one where she's like, I had to spend a second processing how I was going to convey this with my model, where she's like, huh, 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 huh. That one. Yes, the meme tea. Yes. Okay. Good. 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 Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's like fermented or something, right? I don't know. I've never had it because I've been too scared because that woman who's like, hmm, hmm, kind of put me off. Okay. But yeah, so measures are all the same, except they, replace Philippines with Pakistan, because obviously, obviously they did. Interestingly, malevolent motives. You see these alphas? Remember how I said that that's measuring how internally consistent the the scale is? So it's checking whether it's measuring the same thing over and over and over again. That's lower. This 0.63, that's not great. So that's suggesting that there's actually a decent amount of conflicting opinions towards Americans within this sample, which also kind of doesn't surprise me. Because, well, Pakistan was part of the British Empire for a very long time, and so there's a lot of Pakistanis with Western connections, either in the UK or the US. So yeah, they might have personal experience, especially if they were a well-educated and high-status sample. That makes sense, and possibly is not something that they thought through before recruiting their participants. But that's okay. We all have things where like you look back on it and you're like, that was really obvious. I should have realized that. So like there's things in my PhD where I'm like, that is so obvious and I should have done that and I'm really annoyed. I can't do it now because I've run out of time and I've run out of money. That is unfortunately how the science cookie crumbles. But yeah, it is how it is. Okay. These reliabilities, they're actually fine. Negative emotional reactions is fine. Rejection of vaccine donation is fine. Benevolent motives is not so fine. Yeah, so there's conflicting opinions about that, which is interesting. Very interesting. So that would imply that either that's measuring something additional that they didn't expect, or that people are responding to the questions in ways that they didn't expect, which is interesting. And I can't think of what that might be off the top of my head. Okay. There's a table. Very cool. We love tables. Oh, it's the means. So, okay, the means, and then I'm assuming that these brackets are the standard deviation, but they don't. Oh, yeah, standard deviation is in parentheses. Okay. So, really, you want to have a look and see how these are comparable. Any kind chatter want to link me the paper? I might be able to link you the paper, actually. Is there a link directly embedded in the PDF? Let's see. There should be. Please excuse my long scroll. There you go. here. Where was I? Where were we at? We were at this. So yeah, so these are just the averages, and then in parentheses is the standard deviation, so the variance around the mean. And you can't always just eyeball it because there's a lot of things that influence it. Like you want to really use unless you've got a really, really big sample, you want to ideally use the kind of statistical tests that they've been doing to like confirm your eyeball, if that makes sense. Um, but what I'm seeing, just having a quick look at this, is that, like, for example, with the benevolent motives, uh, there is a pretty interesting difference between the average score for outgroup China for the Philippines, and then average score for outgroup USA for Pakistan. It is a little bit higher for Pakistan. Might not be noticeable, but then outgroup China for Pakistan and outgroup USA for the Philippines are like pretty much exactly the same. So that's interesting. Yeah, it is potentially suggesting that there was not quite as much negative opinions as they expected towards the US in Pakistan. And I think that might be that demographic thing sneaking in, possibly, but I'm not sure. You're welcome, Cremo. You are welcome. That's what I'm here for. Resident VTuber psychologist. That's what I'm here for. um, and then also here with outgroup China, this is like a lot higher than. Yeah, the difference between. I guess the difference between outgroup China here and outgroup USA here is kind of comparable to outgroup USA and outgroup China here, but the magnitude is. There is a noticeable difference there. Like there's like half a scale point going on, which is a bit interesting. Which, yeah, because that's like dead in the middle. Like 3 would be in the middle of 1 to 5. This is below, so I assume that means yeah they've got less negative emotions, but both of these are below the midpoint, so that's suggesting that there is less negative emotions towards both. So yeah, I think there might be something underlying this that they didn't think about. And then there's also this as well. That's like a pretty hefty difference. Rejection of help being higher towards China than you would expect if everything was equal. So yeah. So the means you really can't rely on them entirely, but having a look at them can be very, very helpful. Okay. Results and discussion. So they've done their structural equation modeling again. I don't understand it. Let's move on. The Pakistani data by and large replicated the hypothesized pattern, but the evidence was less strong. Yeah, that matches up with what we've seen there. Malevolent motives, which had a significant indirect effect on rejection on help in the Philippines, did not emerge as a significant predictor this time. Interesting. Malevolent motives. Huh. That is interesting. Okay. I guess, yeah, because these are both closer to the midpoint of the scale than this. So that kind of makes sense. That's all just talking about the repeated measures ANOVA, which I still don't understand. Brilliant. I mean, yeah, there's not really much else to say about that aside from, like I said, I think that they've forgotten something. I think that they've forgotten to account for their demographics, which in this case I can imagine, given the tendency for like migration, probably is tends to be more like, you know, middle and upper class folks that migrate. Wouldn't be surprised if that's an element of it there. Like it's kind of influenced it in that way. Also, being more aware of geopolitics doesn't necessarily mean like just strictly adhering to the narrative about geopolitics, if that makes sense. They might be more educated, but that in turn probably gives them a more nuanced understanding, so they won't fall into that like simplified us versus them as much. I don't know if that makes sense. It'll be interesting to see how they describe it. But yeah, it seems like okay. We'll have a skim of the discussion. Um, but I think they're probably just going to say largely what I've already said. I don't know if that made sense. I hope it did. I hope it did. Uh, so, as would be expected on the basis of heightened suspicion towards China. Actually, does that mean towards? Does V? Does that mean towards? I don't know. I don't know what language that is. It looks French. I don't speak French. So, I don't speak anything. I barely speak English. So, yeah. Filipino participants perceived more negative motives, had more blah, 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 blah. Reset. Okay. Had more negative reactions and were more likely to want to reject donations from China compared to donations from the US. And the opposite true was Pakistan, but it wasn't as strong. That's roughly what I understand. That means regarding? I don't know. I honestly don't know. People use not English words, and like fair enough because most of these papers are in like they're authored by international people. Like they could be from anywhere, and I'm like cool. Like I like seeing like I don't know French or German or Latin or whatever, but I don't know what it means. I am just a simple monolingual being. I don't understand. Like, not sure if you addressed it, but I wonder if the fact that the surveys were in English could have biased the data in one way or another. Yeah, I think it really, really did. Yeah, I think the fact that it was like 99% of the samples had high education and also they all happened to speak good or very good English. I think those two things are probably related. Um, yeah, and also obviously being able to speak English means that you've got access to a wider range of information as well, right? So I don't know if I like it. I don't know. Say if we're in like a foreign, if we're in like another dimension where like I'm British and everything that's coming from the US is like foreign in terms of the language. Like American English is not British compatible anymore. Like I don't understand what's coming from you. Then I'm like, what, 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 what is this? So every time that say the US would be producing information about the UK, I can't read it. I can't read it. So then I'm like, well, I can't read this, so I'm just going to stick to what my country produces. And depending on the country that you're in, that could mean that you have access to a wide range of information, or it could mean that you have access to exactly one source of information. And if it's the latter, then that's not ideal. I think that, I mean, even in the UK, we have access to a wide range of information, but like the things that are based here, they tend to be very skewed. So you need to read a wide range of sources to get the full picture. Um, but then imagine if you my light died again. Why does this keep happening to me? But then imagine if you just don't have access to stuff anymore. Like that would be wild. But yeah, I think that the fact that they spoke English probably meant that they were also accessing English resources about a wide range of things. Which the light turned back on. Good stuff. Which in turn, I've got a ghost. I think I've got a ghost. That in turn means that they can actually, understand a more diverse range of perspectives than what people are just saying in their country. So, I really wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. In relation to, with regard to, okay, when you want to compare it to something, okay, cool. There's lots of like big fancy academic words that I'm like, okay. The amount of times that I have Googled, oh Lord, how do you even say this word? Like hegemonic. It took me, I think that's how you say it. I don't actually know how you say it because I've never, well, I heard someone say it out loud for the first time this summer. Like as in summer just gone, 2023. But like, I kept reading it and I was like, what is this? And then like, I had to spend like a full week just reading about like theory in relation to that word to understand what people are referencing. Because like, sometimes academics use words and they're not even just using the word, they're implying meaning with the word that you need to know if you're in the in crowd, but they don't tell you what it is. It's a thing called like the hidden curriculum, where like you're expected to know loads of implied stuff that isn't actually said, and it is not ideal for me. Let's put it that way. I'm not very good at picking up these kinds of cues, so I'm just like, what even is this? What are you talking about? But yeah, I could go on a whole rant about academia, but I will wait until I have finished my PhD and I am no longer in academia because I don't want to get in trouble. Okay. Right. So they're bigging up their stuff. They're saying it's cool because it's in a low and middle income country sample, or two low and middle income country samples. Sorry, skimmed past that very quickly because there was a spoiler for a class I'm working on. Applied importance because it's the pandemic. Yes. Better understanding of mechanisms is very important to ensure vaccine uptake. Yes. Cool. Trojan horse myth. Okay. Sorry, I'm fully just reading and then thinking out loud now because I'm trying to power through this to see if there's actually anything additional that's interesting that we haven't already talked about. Global health initiatives could consider geopolitical constellations more clearly when developing guiding principles for resource distributions to maximize the beneficial impact of initiatives by ensuring better acceptance of aid. That's an interesting point, but surely if you're just mapping out vaccine distribution according to geopolitical constellations, you're just kind of reinforcing them. That doesn't seem like a good idea to me on the top of my head. But maybe it is. I don't know. I guess, in a pandemic, getting people to take the vaccine is probably more important than reinforcing those geopolitical issues. But I don't know. I'd say they're probably equally important because they both have quite long-term impacts, really, don't they? Okay. We found more consistent effects for the predictive power of benevolent motives than of malevolent motives. Okay, interesting. Although benevolent motives have the expected effects on emotional reaction and rejection, the pattern for effective malevolent motives was more variable. See, I still think that was a sample effect. I think that was due to who they sampled. They're saying it possibly intergroup trust rather than intergroup suspicion is driving it. I think that would be a cute idea, but I'm very skeptical of it. So, how much we trust the outgroup rather than how much we're suspicious of them. To be honest, to me, those kind of seem two sides of the same coin. I don't know how helpful it is to lay those out as separate things. So, yeah, not sure about that one. I think it's probably just a effect of the sample. If they replicated this with like more people and with people that more accurately represent the whole population of each country, I'd be like, yeah, go on then. But yeah. These findings must be considered as exploratory and tentative. Okay, good. Fair enough. No a priori predictions were held in this regard. Yeah, fair enough. Isn't that the same thing? Yeah, I think it pretty much is. I really don't understand the point in differentiating trust from suspicion, but that might just be my lack of conceptual understanding. But yeah, I feel like they're kind of like you can't trust somebody, I mean, even a group, even if you're talking in terms of international relations, like you can't trust a country and then also think, oh, but I trust them, but they're also definitely doing something sus. Like that doesn't really add up. Unless it's like maybe directed towards other countries. Like maybe you could look at another country and be like, generally I trust them, but they're doing something sus to this specific country. Maybe that would work, but otherwise I don't really understand their thinking on that. I hate the US, but damn, do they make a good burger? I hate the UK, but no, we don't even have anything, do we? I literally had beans on toast for breakfast today. I am literally a walking stereotype, and I would like to apologise for it. Like, what have we even given the world? I can't think of much. I guess we've got Doctor Who. Do people still watch it? I don't know. I've got nothing. I don't know. The Office wouldn't exist without us. Like the show, The Office wouldn't exist because the British one came first, right? I'm trying to think of what else, but I've genuinely got nothing. Uh, I was literally thinking USA, but I don't think I trust them politically either. Yeah, I was thinking the same. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. Um, okay, right. I mean, to be fair, the fact that I'm British means that I am like legally mandated to clown on the US and France. Like, I'm not allowed to like go a single day without making a joke about either the US or France. Like, I have to do at least one, otherwise, like, King Charles will disown me. It's a mandatory requirement for citizenship here. Actually, is that and drinking at least 2 cups of tea a day. Great British Bake Off. That's true. We do have Great British Bake Off, and it is a banger show. So yeah. Um, okay. It's not really much though, is it? um, okay. Previous research has focused almost exclusively on malevolent motives. If it's the case that benevolent motives are in fact more powerful predictor, then scholars of intergroup helping should take note. Yeah, I mean, fair enough if that is the case, but we need more evidence. We need more evidence. Ugh, it's just the standard scientist response. We need more evidence. Sorry, Americans. It's not you guys as people. It's the way your system's set up. Yeah. Although, I mean, Brits can't really judge that hard because it's kind of loosely modelled on ours. Like, we kind of, yeah. Like, it's kind of a mix of us and, like, France and Spain, right? So, they kind of got some bad bits of everything. But, like, the Brits can't duck out of responsibility. We've done a lot of pain in the world, let's be honest. But that's okay because we also gave you Great British Bake Off. And me, I guess. uh, I don't know. These streams definitely do not make up for our terrible comedy and history. I think every non-American clowns on the US. So true, so true. I yeah. Even Americans clown on the US now, which is quite good. I'm glad that they're becoming self-aware. Is it my God-given right as a blue-blooded American to clown on America? Yes. And also on Britain, to be fair. Uh, Actually, I hereby decree that everybody has the right to clown on the Brits. No! I forgot to turn off the sound alerts again. I am so sorry, Talarin. I have not set them up yet. I keep forgetting. But you know what? I will do it just for you. Wow! There you go. Wasn't that better than getting a default sound alert? Wow! So much better. Developing self-awareness. Great British Bake Off, yeah. Although I didn't watch the last series, I watched like the first episode, and then life happened, PhD happened, and that I didn't get very far with it, which is quite sad. Two great cultural exports, yes, so true, so true. Hi, how do you say that? Good no chair, good no shay, good no shay. Hi, good no shay. Welcome in. I'm so sorry if I've said your name wrong. Please correct me if I did. I hope you're doing okay today. We also have great electric plugs. That is so true. Did you know that we have the safest electrical plugs in the world? Thank you for the sub, Jay Hanlon. Thank you so much. I hope you're enjoying the stream and my rampant patriotism about plugs. Thank you so much for the sub, and welcome to the research assistant crew. Because all of my subs are research assistants. I don't actually give you any research to do, so it's actually quite chill compared to a real research assistant contract. But yeah, you're enjoying the new emote. I'm glad. I think that emote is so cursed. Someone has actually made a really nice replacement for it. I'm gonna do a bit of back and forth. But yeah, I got my first ever. I guess it was like kind of fan art. It's cute. I guess I don't know, but yeah, I'm gonna see what they think. And then if not, we'll keep the cursed version. But yeah, as I understand it, trust in the country influences trust in their vaccine, but mistrust in the country might not matter as much because begrudging trust in the quality of a vaccine might bypass any negative feelings towards the country as a whole. That's true. I did not think about it in terms of trusting the vaccine itself. That's a very interesting point. Fan art? I know, I know, I know. Normally it's just me making my own fan art, so it's a big step up. um, but yeah, no, definitely. I actually wonder because they didn't measure. They didn't actually measure trust, though, did they? Let's go back very quickly. Where's the measures section? I've lost it. Measures. Malevolent motives. Benevolent motives. So the malevolent was assertion of power, reinforcing dependency, and self-interest. Benevolent was caring for the in-group's well-being and having concern for welfare. Okay, so it is very much about how the country see us as a country, as a nation, as a group of people. But I do wonder whether that interacts with how they feel about the vaccine as well, to be fair. Because I think trust for a vaccine and trust for a country, obviously they're separate, but then trust for a specific country's vaccine is kind of an element of both, right? So yeah, that's an interesting point. And I'm not, these were not like validated measures. They didn't check that they actually measure what they think it measures. So I do wonder whether there's a bit of conflation happening in the measures themselves. Also, just like saying about concern for welfare, that in itself is, yeah, I can already see that like overlapping with just opinions about vaccines in general, which they didn't seem to measure. Because if you are positive towards vaccines and they're donating a vaccine, surely that would then translate into being more inclined to think they care about your welfare. Like it's almost like a demand effect. It's like kind of making people respond what you want them to respond by accident. That's a very, very interesting point. And frankly, that in itself would be a reason for major revisions on the whole paper. Oh dear. Oh no, we've discovered something live. Oh dear. What's it about? So the paper is about how different countries feel about when other countries donate vaccines to them. So they're kind of seeing how people respond to it, how people respond to the donations. If only real world worked in like Civ 6 where you can see your friendship number. So true. So true, honestly. Also, like, can I just say, every time that I play Civ 6, there's like Suleiman, I think, from the Ottoman Empire attacks me. And then like also Jadwiga from the Polish kingdom attacks me, and I'm like, what is it with you two? Why are you like this? Stop. Get some help. But anyway. It's, you know what? Civ would have been a really good game to like follow on from this with, but I'm tired and hungry, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm now trying to just get to the end of the paper because I want to go eat. So yeah. Okay. The present survey data are correlational. Yeah, I would really like to see an experiment where they use exactly the same wording. They like have a, I don't know, like a news article or a video or something, and they use exactly the same wording, but they flip the country and see whether that has any instant response. This is why we can't have nice things. He's so true. That is actually me every time that I play Civ. And then like, yeah, I don't know. I just want to do like the cultural victory, and everything seems to be getting in the way of that. And it makes me very sad. I want to win through art. I want to be the art person, and it doesn't happen. It will happen one day, but I've never done it. So, yeah. In-group Gilgamesh, out-group Genghis Khan. That's so true. It's not Genghis Khan, is it? It's Genghis Khan. Am I right? I think that's right. Genghis Khan. I've been corrected on that before. Because this was another thing where I've never heard anyone say it out loud, so I just read it how it was. Okay. Yeah, okay, cool. Another limitation is convenience samples. Yeah, we've talked about the samples extensively. They suck. They were so bad. It is unsurprising that educated middle class participants were overrepresented. Yeah, because you literally just sent it to your mates and asked them to forward it on to their mates. Like that, yeah, obviously. Let's see. Representative national samples would be needed. Yes. Well, now you've got a paper, so you might be able to convince people to give you money to do another study. So that's good. Limitation is the concerns of the measures. Could have had higher reliability. That is not the only concern with your measure, but okay. Another limitation is that we didn't empirically measure perceived intonation tensions. That's a very good point, actually. They didn't actually measure what people think about the country. They just measured what they think about donations from the country. That would have been that, and I think also political knowledge. Those would have been two really, really important things to measure and to like control for, because you can run your statistical analyses in a way that like you're looking at a very specific thing, but you make sure that it isn't changing over the variance in a separate thing. So that's called controlling for it. But they didn't do that, which is sad. But then again, that's probably one of those like what's the word? My brain stopped. My brain has stopped because I just realised that I said an emote out loud and now I'm cringing at myself. But yeah. What was I saying? Oh, I've completely lost the plot. I've lost the plot. I don't know where I am anymore. Oh yeah, political knowledge, intergroup thingies, intergroup tensions. They should have measured them because they probably did have an impact, and we need to know that. But yeah, it's one of those things where you look back and you're like, I should have done that, but can't do it now. Already got the data, so it's fine. That's for a future study. And it gives you something to write about for a future study that you need to do as well, which probably you'll never do, but you know, sometimes you do. Is calling people weird common in academia as in white, educated, industrialized, rich, democratic as a sample group? Yes, it is. No, you've spoiled my class. So I've got a whole class coming up about exactly that, because I find this such an interesting thing. Like, we do most of our research on basically psychology students in the UK and US and the Netherlands and Germany, and that's like most of our research. Especially in social psychology, we're really bad for it. Other areas of psychology, like clinical psychology and developmental, they're slightly better, but social psychology, we're very bad for it. And then we do this research on these very specific groups of people that are very well educated, you know, they're from very specific countries, they have very specific life experiences, and then we're like, okay, this applies to the whole world. And for a long time we just did it without like questioning it. It's only been in the last like 10 years where we've started questioning that. Like, maybe people in, I don't know, maybe people in sub-Saharan Africa think a bit differently to people in Amsterdam. Wild, absolutely wild, but yeah, that's a thing. Might be cool to compare and contrast undergrad psych students as a sample versus MTurk. Yeah, I think there's actually people that are doing that. Yeah, non-expert MTurk is pretty decent. I've used it before and it was pretty decent. If you're using it in the right way, it's one of those things where it's a tool and you need to know how to use it. But yeah, how is that fair? It isn't. It isn't. We shouldn't just be making generalizing statements about entire populations of the Earth based on 200 psychology students. But you know, we're getting a bit better. Largely, it's just because of a lack of funding. In all honesty, we don't get the money to run the studies we need to do. Could it be possible that they purposely targeted more well-educated individuals in order to see a more significant difference, or would they have mentioned it if it was intentional? I don't think that they would have done it intentionally. Normally, if there's like a big glaring issue in the paper like that, it's because it's something that they didn't think about before they ran the study, and then someone's brought it up in review, and then they're like, oh, my bad. Well, we can't change it now unless we run a whole nother study. I think it's probably just a mistake. I think genuinely they were just using whatever sample they could because they didn't have access to funds to do a bigger study, because it's really expensive. Like, even if you just want to recruit 300 odd participants, it's like $1,000. So yeah, yeah. Like, my choice at present, right? The thinking that I'm having at the minute is, do I fund the last study of my PhD, or do I put that money towards like a live 2D VTuber model. What is the choice here? I mean, obviously I'm going with PhD, but that is genuinely a thing. Like they're the same amount of money. So, and you've probably all heard how expensive VTuber models can be. They're also in the thousands. Yeah, yeah. I think that is the reason why the paper was not really it wasn't really brought up too much. I think this is all just kind of wrapping up now. Let's see. Who? Ah, they have mentioned there are two issues conflated in the findings reported here: who gives the donations and who manufactured the donation. For example, a vaccine donated by WHO COVAX might or might not have been produced in China. Very true. Very good point. Anything else? It's just kind of generic stuff about misinformation bad now, I think. Okay. Yeah, VTuber models are very, very expensive. Very, very expensive. Okay. So excuse me while I lean to the side because I can't see my scroll bar. That's the paper. That is the paper. I hope you enjoyed. Guide the raid. Ooh, amazing. We would definitely go and raid them. Thank you very much. Thank you, Tayu. Yeah, so that was the paper. We've done it. We've got through it. Amazing. Amazing. We love that. Oh, I'm so happy. And I can mark the paper as read and I can tell everybody I've read it now. So we all win. We all win. I've got another thing to tell my supervisor. Yay. Oh, my university had a thing where you needed to participate in X amount of studies, like being a participant of a test for a doctoral student in order to get enough points to complete a degree. Yeah, see, that's why so many studies are done on psychology students. That's how we get around the lack of funding, is we just force people to do it, which is probably not ethical, but you know, it is what it is. Okie dokie. So, thank you all for joining me. Yeah, you got a founder badge because yeah, I think we've got 4 people so far that have subbed. So I think there's another 6 slots left. Oh no, we've got 5 people now, I think. So we've got another 6 slots left for founder, which is very exciting. But yeah, thank you all so much. Thank you for joining. I hope, is it okay to use Sci-Hub? Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the follow, Good No Shay. I still hope I'm saying that right. I'm so sorry if I'm not. It is absolutely okay to use Sci-Hub. For legal reasons, it's not okay to use Sci-Hub, but if I was interested in finding papers for free without having to pay large amounts of money for them, Sci-Hub is definitely not a website that I would use to access them. But thankfully, all of the papers that we're talking about in these streams are open access, and they've got like an open license on them, so we can actually talk about them, and it's all good. Perfect, perfect. Oh yeah, somebody gifted. It was Jack, the legend, who has raided us, and we have raided a few times as well. But yeah, he did gift sub over Christmas during the discount, which was very cool. But yeah, I appreciate all of you. Whether you sub or not, I appreciate all of you. You're all amazing. The best thing you can do is just tune in and listen to me ramble and, you know, have a conversation, because that's what I enjoy the most. Yeah. So glad I caught the stream. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, thank you, everybody. I hope you'll have a lovely evening or day or morning or whatever it is for you. It was fun. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. So yeah, we're gonna go and raid. Man, this is a really long name. Slothman and oh, this is not ideal for somebody that struggles with words. Slothman and an Emmapotamus. There we go. We got there. We're gonna go raid Slothman and an blah blah blah. Let's try that again. Slothman and an Emmapotamus. We're gonna go raid them. We're gonna go say hi. Very cool that they raise money for mental health charities and they do interviews about mental health. We love that. We love that. So yeah, Slothman Dan and Emmapotamus. Thank you. It is a cute name, isn't it? It's very cute. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining. And yeah, I'll see you. The next stream is tomorrow at, again, 6 p.m. GMT. I put in the thing that there's going to be a class. I have not finished reading the papers and making the presentation for the class I was going to do about weirdness again. So it might end up being like a spontaneous thing where we talk about things. I don't know. I haven't 100% decided yet, but you know, if I need a break from writing because I'm just writing my thesis at the minute, maybe I will get the time to produce the presentation I want to make, but we'll see. But yeah, we're going to go and raid. Thank you all so much for joining. And yeah, hope you have a lovely day. And look after yourselves. And don't forget to do the mindfulness task. Think about when... Is there a raid message? Yes, there is. Raid message. It didn't work. That's okay. Well, we've got a new emote now anyway. We've got the raid emote. Let's do that. Oh gosh. That's the one. Thank you. And then add your raid emote on the end. It's the field trip time. Thank you so much, M0. I can always count on you for the raid message. You're always on the ball. And I am not. I am a mess. I have no idea where I am half the time. I'm struggling with the chat right now. I ain't gonna lie. That's the one. Thank you, thank you, Johanlin. I'm glad that you lot know what you're doing because I'm having a really strong boomer moment right now. But yeah, let's go and raid. And thank you so much for joining. And I will hopefully see some of you tomorrow. But yeah, bye bye.